hosts and are watching it live because it's like a long time to just sit around and watch TV essentially all day. Um, but yeah, so we'll start the conversation off with what I was saying about Raw and I, and then go around. You guys can introduce yourself. Then I'll ask how you got into it, and we'll just start kicking it off freestyle. Awesome. I believe we're live now. Sweet. So welcome to day 5 of Crypto Art Week. I'm your host, Lady Phoenix. I am joined by my esteemed guests for art and blockchain for the culture. We have Osinachi, we have Mark Saab, Ra Crawford, and Stefan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, happy to
Thank
be
you.
here.
What's going on?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. So I was sharing a story earlier before we went live about my initial conversation with Ra. And the first title that I had for this panel was Black on the Blockchain. And Ra, who I admire, you know, his work and his practice, he was like, Black on the blockchain, look. I want to participate. You know, this sounds like it's something that's really cool. But if it's going to be called Black on the blockchain, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. And I thought, well, that's weird. If this was about women, it would be called like Women on the Blockchain or, you know, Women in Crypto Art or whatever. So I felt like if this was going to be a panel about the culture, it should talk about, you know, us on the blockchain, right? And so it was a really nice challenge to me to see if I could decolonize my language in order to serve this panel, serve the overall crypto community, and of course, serve the culture. And through our conversation, we, you know, were able to look at the history of some of the words that we use, and which is why I say decolonizing the language. So back in the days, African people were sold, Black people were sold on a block, and they were chained to that block on Wall Street. Before Wall Street began to trade stock, they were trading human beings as stock, specifically people of the African diaspora. And so Blacks on the block chained didn't really sit right for Ra, and I can see why. And I'm glad that, you know, in our culture, we have a tradition of the elders really stepping up and being not just role models, but, you know, keeping a steady course with the wisdom, you know, and I just appreciate that, you know, because there's that other saying, like when basically when an elder dies, or it's like burning a whole, you know, forest, basically, because all that wisdom is gone if it's not passed on and instilled in those around them. And elders can, you know, elders are not just by age, but also an elder by experience, you know, lived experience. And so I really appreciate you bringing that forward and making sure that if we're going into the future, we move into the future, decolonizing our language and bringing fresh, new perspectives and new language to what we're trying to do. So having said that, welcome to Art and the Blockchain for the Culture. Basically, art and technology, basically blockchain technology for the culture. Basically looking at how this technology, how the creative technologies and how, you know, emerging technologies overall can benefit us and aid in us not bringing the old narratives and old ways into new ways of being. So thank you and welcome. And if you guys have questions, make sure you throw them down in the chat. I'll be glancing down over there to see them here and there and pop them into the discussion. This is really a truly international panel. I'm in Northern California. I believe Ra is in Brooklyn. Mark is in Hawaii. Mark, where are you from?
So I'm originally from New York, from Queens, born and raised in Queens. So
hey, going right around. Mark, you're up. The other Mark. You
Okay, hear me now?
Yeah.
They're good. I'm from Philly. I'm in Southern California right now.
Okay, bet.
Philly, that's my hometown.
Nice, nice. Osinachi?
Yeah, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria at the moment, based here.
Nice. Stefan?
I'm from the Bahamas, born and raised, actually, so I'm here now.
Sweet. And why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your background and your connection to technology and blockchain technology specifically?
Sure. I fell in love with blockchain just out of my background's in economics, and I was kind of involved in finance, and I kind of was slowly getting into the tech space. So obviously started with fintech, and then I found out about blockchain. It was like the next level for me because it was like econ tech really at the end of the day, because it had its own little economies involved in it. So fast forward a bit, a few years, this was around like end of 2016, early 2017. A few people in the Caribbean community, really, we built the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance just as kind of a community organization. And that kind of evolved and grew. The community got bigger. And what we're doing right now is we're focusing on education as well as public policy. I don't like the word lobbying, but just trying to better engage government agencies, regulators, things like that. So the two mandates are basically, bringing education to people who don't know, especially for software developers, and then just proper engagement with policy in general. So that's what I've been doing for the most part. We're really ramping up this year, especially given that everyone's kind of been home the whole time. It's like kind of been the perfect time to really push forward and try to get everything together. And then that's kind of completely separate from anything to do with crypto art. Crypto art was just something I came into on my own, and definitely have to shout out Steve Wand, because he was the one that pretty much brought me into it. And definitely fairly new, only 2 months at most, I would say, since I bought my first piece. But I think like 35 pieces later, I've fallen in love with the space. It's super addicting, and the community is wonderful. So that's pretty much me.
Thank you. Ra?
Hey, everybody. Rod Crawford. My background, I've been a visual artist, illustrator, painter since birth. So professionally, artist side, I've exhibited in galleries, representation, Amsterdam, London, shown at various places, museums, and did that whole circuit for a very long time. And, always a rebel. So always into developing my own way, and I wanted to get out of that formal gallery structure, and just kind of managing, myself. And I was heads down kind of doing that, building a body of work. And from about 2004 to 2016, I call that like my welcome to Earth period. And I, bound everything in a book. It's called Welcome to Earth, and it kind of documents that whole creative period for me. And then, I realized that it was time to kind of, focus on a new sense of inspiration. And so after that, I'm in Brooklyn, Bushwick, so I've been on the ground doing a lot of things in the art scene here. And the Consensus office is actually in Bushwick. And so I met people from Consensus, visited the office, and I heard this thing about blockchain. So, and this was like early on, like when it was just kind of first getting, early on. So easily 2017 into 2016. And so, once I learned about blockchain, this technology, that blew my mind, because I've always, interested in tech early on, building websites and code and all those kind of things as well. So I got into it that way, met the guys at Super Rare. And kind of, so I'm in my new period, which kind of focuses on like pop culture and digital art and technology and future forward of like where we're going as a culture. And it's called my Neo Now period. So I did a short documentary about that, which screened at the Bushwick Film Festival a couple of years ago. I even have John from Super Rare is in the doc. So, that's a like real short story about, what I am and what I do. I have an arts and media company called World Owned. So I've been designing and branding and doing like creative consultation in arts and entertainment space. So I've been like, just deep in the arts and entertainment space for some time. And I love the blockchain space. I love the community, the crypto art space. So many amazing things are happening. And we really have the opportunity to build like new systems and structures. And we spoke about that a little bit, Lady Phoenix. And so it's really important. I feel that what we do now as a collective, as a culture, what we say, the kind of art we put out, and because we're setting a template of how people are going to engage with us and how people are going to perceive us moving forward. So I think it's really important. So I'm pretty passionate about that.
Thank you, Ra. I appreciate that. And we'll definitely, after we go around and do the intros, talk about lean first into the future, and then figure out you know, based on what's been going on in the past, how we can sort of like affect the future in a really positive and impactful way from this current moment. Osinachi?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Osinachi from Nigeria, currently based in Lagos. I'm a visual artist, and I think recently I've started to really adopt the title or prepare myself to a full-time as a full-time crypto artist. I started making art as far back as my junior secondary school. That's like 2005, 2006, or thereabout. And it started for me with going to cyber cafe with my dad. He introduced me to the internet, and I had to visit the cyber cafe because there was no computer at home. So doing whatever I had to do uh, at the cyber cafe, I started playing around with Microsoft Word and started exploring the drawing tools on Microsoft Word. And that is how I came about my practice at the moment. So I'm a digital artist who makes his work using Microsoft Word. Everything I do is done on Microsoft Word. And I discovered crypto art in 2018. As a digital artist, it was difficult for me to find opportunities. And I needed the world to see my art beyond Instagram, you know. And I went searching. That was when I discovered Rare Art Labs. The guys at Rare Art Labs gave me my first chance in crypto art. And I was able to exhibit at Ethereal, New York, 2018, alongside other artists. And from there, I discovered other platforms like Portion.io, Super Rare, Maker's Place, I Think Art, and Rarible. And I came to discover that my position as an African crypto artist and given the spot I occupy in the community right now, has made me Africa's foremost crypto artist, which is also why I appreciate platforms like this to um, sort of shed a light on how African artists can participate in crypto art and also be part of the movement and become a part of the future.
Thank you very much, Osinachi. We're going to definitely delve more into that later. Mark Saab, you're up.
Yeah, so yeah, my name is Mark. I do a lot of different things. I've founded this art collective platform called Feltzine, which is really focused on like internet art. I did that in like 2011. It's interesting because I essentially created Feltzine because I was really active in the vaporwave art world and like music genre that sort of popped up in like the late 2009, early 2010. Just recognized there was a lot of really interesting visual art that was happening along with the music. And I sort of felt like there was no way that like me and my friends and people who I was connecting with online would ever be represented by like any museums or in any publications. So I was like, yo, let's just start our own and like let's just like kind of rock out and do our thing. 10 years later, I have now like worked for museums, shows in museums, been like a big part of like the art world in a way. But I think sort of through that lens, I've always felt like an outsider. And so I've always, of course, like stayed really close to, I think, my roots, especially in internet art. And of course, like I think being someone who grew up like really deeply in hip hop culture, just sort of always had that sort of mindset of like being independent. And then so I think I think similar to what Stefan was saying, like my transition into crypto art definitely picked up in the last few years. I think like I've had a lot of friends who sort of like have been circling around this space for a while, who have been interested. And they would sort of like talk about it here and there, but maybe like a few months ago, over the span of a week, I had around like 3 or 4 people, like for instance, Trippy Yogi on Instagram, my really close friend, John, he was like, Zora is really interested in working with us. And just all these really interesting sort of like collabs came up, and it all happened in sort of like a span of a week, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, and it was like wait, this is like very interesting right now, like what's going on. And so I think my transition to the space came sort of from the community. I think that's a lot of where a lot of my art and inspiration comes from, is just looking at community and sort of like listening to the people around me. So like the transition like sort of happened very quickly. I think as we all know, the NFT space right now is just moving so fast that I think like, which is comfortable for me. So I sort of just jumped in and I've just been really excited about the potential. Like I said, I'm someone who like, I think like studies a lot of different industries, especially as they're related to like art and technology and entertainment. And so I think in a lot of ways, it's really cool to see the way that like crypto can be like empowering for artists, right? Like I think working with museums and with art institutions closely, it has made me uncomfortable in the past, the way that like sort of artists get disregarded very early, right? Like, you know, as we talked about, you could look at systems like, you know, like sort of like what Christie's and Sotheby's do, right? Like the people who make the most money off of art aren't the artists. What Rob was talking about is sort of like separating from like the gallery spaces, like galleries taking, you know, 50% of a cut when they're not necessarily like managing your art and like actually pushing you the way that they should. I think a lot of that is actually just like extremely problematic. And you know, when you have systems now where an artist can sell a work and then, you know, continue to make money off of that even after every, you know, subsequent sale, that sort of stuff is just exciting to me and empowering to me. So I think I'm excited for what's going to happen sort of for like the future. And I think like, just like all of you have said, like just going from like having art that, you know, essentially was being shared on social media platforms as sort of like, you know, like one goal to, you know, get, you know, whatever, to hopefully get a sale or to hopefully get, you know, like a company to commission you. And instead now we can like post art for like to actually get a sale and drive hype in that way. I just think it's really cool. And it's sort of like a natural evolution, I think, of the way that digital art has been going. So I'm just excited to be a part of it, excited to get like, you know, our community involved, excited to help artists in any way I can. So yeah.
I like the way you ended that, like you had just dropped the dopest freestyle of 2020. You know, you're like, yeah, like anybody want to go after me, I guess. But you know what I mean? That's what it is. All right, Philly in the house. Mark Savage.
What's up, beautiful people? All right, yes, so I am Mark Savage. I'm online, Twitter and YouTube as Bit Savage, Instagram Phenomenal Mark, and my blockchain experience has been incredible, has been enlightening, and definitely made me level up. I started in the space around 2017, and so my background for 12, 13 years, I'm a filmmaker, storyteller. I've been directing, editing, writing, wearing a lot of the production hats. Living here in LA, you know, learned a lot through the industry. But when I moved to LA, you know, I had to get all my new contacts, upgrade my equipment. So I got deep into the street art scene, and that was enlightening experience as well. So I know a lot of the street artists, got into pop art, went the gallery route, said, okay, I'm going to be a professional artist. You know, no one really told me I could be a professional artist. So I went that road, it's a roller coaster. And when I was making some good money, I said, I need to invest it. I need to do something financially. So blockchain has blessed me with learning about structure, organization, and the business side of art. Not just art, just business in general. So right now I'm like super structured, super organized, focused on details. And the cool thing about blockchain for me is I took about 9 months to learn a lot. Still learning a lot. I've been able to advise companies. I got into the trading a little bit, but I learned really the foundation of a lot of the tech, what they're building and what they're promising to do. So now whenever I look at CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, I'm like, this is all speculation. Come to the art space, come buy something of value. And it kind of, so over the past 3 years, I would say 2019, I found out about Engine and NFTs, you know, making virtual items, and they were doing game items. And I said, I can do this with my artwork. You know, I have some of my art pieces just chilling here in the house. So took some pictures of my art, put it up there. It was going really good. I said, you know what? I need to make a platform. I need to really structure this. So I had for a year I had an auction house, and I was doing cool, auctioning off game items and art pieces, virtual art. We were auctioning things in Telegram just manually. Just 100 engines, 1,000 engines, one ether, just in Telegram. I said I need to give some developers and really, really set up a platform. So that's kind of evolved into a door. I did like a soft launch or a campaign right now for a door. I got together 20 artists who's want to give away some prizes for everyone that buys an Adore token or the Gachapon. It's called a Gachapon token. And this is going to go into a fair launch with how we launch our token. So I kind of know, the ins and outs of proof of stake, proof of work, and a lot of different protocols. I'm like super obsessed with a lot of things in blockchain. I have like 100 wallets doing different things. So I got really technical, and I went on hiatus from art. Now I'm just getting back into art. Now I'm using Blender to do my 3D renders, and we can do video and music now. So I may do some short films as NFTs, and it's just 2020 has been a blessing. I can bring everything together, and I'm kind of just taking notes as I listen to everyone. But I truly believe that there needs to be trust, reputation, and alliance. Just really a structure, a foundation where when people come in, they can say, okay, this is who I can look to. This is who I can lean to. This is who I can trust. This is who I can't trust, as well as learn, learn on the run, because there's so much to do. And everyone that enters the space, I say, be innovative, be innovative. You can see what everyone else is doing, but what do you want to do? We did a tweet, what was Satoshi do? And it's kind of evolving into what would I do? Just be innovative. This is the time. You can be Elon Musk. There's no ceiling. And so yeah, I gotta I'm just gonna write my notes, and I love being here. Thanks for the invite, and let's level up. Let's build the legacy. Let's really build the foundation to get the future on their feet, and have some blockchain money.
That's first of all, does anyone have any feedback or comments for the things that they've heard from the other panelists, or any direct questions to
just jump into what I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, jumping off of what Mark said, he kind of wrapped things up, and was, I hear that sense of integrity, pride, and honor moving forward, kind of blazing, and forming alliances, and I'm with that 100%. And I would love, for again, not getting in the way of anybody's creative passion or vision, but I would love it if we all could in some way, I don't want to say vow, but I'll say it, vow to show Blackness and culture in an honorable sort, and vow not to sell Black pain for money on a blockchain. Because in our physical world, this is what happens. Be it music, hip hop, it's just, Black pain is sold for money. And I would love us not to do that. That's not the thing for future forward and blockchain and tech. We just don't do it. And that could set a whole new tone forward for what you see and what images are acceptable and what images are not with Black culture and faces. So, I mean, I would love that. So that's what I was feeling from what he was saying about the whole kind of, honor and then moving forward.
I really like that. How do we then, because I know Osinachi, you are in a kind of a weird position in Nigeria right now, where you guys are trying to, forge new ways forward, but at the same time dealing with an old regime and military and government who would rather keep things where they are. And so as a result, I know a lot of different artists from Nigeria and DJs and such have done fundraisers to raise money and awareness for the families and for the causes and foundations that are doing something about that. I'm interested, Ra, how would you consult? You have a creative consulting business. How would you consult an Osinachi who came to you and said, look, this is what's going on with us. I know you don't want to celebrate, Black pain. That's sort of your ethos. How do you help me raise money and awareness around a painful issue about my country and my people and my generation without, talking about the pain? How does that happen?
Well, talking about is one thing, that's a completely separate thing. But again, I'm talking about Well, I mean, there's all making art in the sense of like whatever the image is, you can make art about anything, as we all know. It's a whole bunch of creative people in this panel. And you can make a particular picture that honors and celebrates, and challenges the established norm, even if there is pain or death behind that. You can still create an image that inspires one, or you could sell that Black pain and death. And again, it's like, and it's funny you brought this out because it was like back in a while, Osinachi was just kind of bringing that up. We had like a Twitter kind of going back and forth with the piece that he made, about George Floyd. And when I first saw it, like, it just enraged me. Like I was so lit and angry. I took to Twitter. I was like, blah 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 blah.
What a famous!
Oh my goodness, I was so angry because for me, that represented exactly what I was talking about. It's like Black pain and a literal death of a Black man being sold on a predominantly white market. And so that, just the whole concept of that, and like we talked about this a little bit, Lady Phoenix, like after that, I start seeing like, Black man dies, I start seeing his image pop up on a blockchain. And at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm about to actually just get out of crypto art, period, because I didn't like this potential trend I saw. Somebody dies Black, they get sold on the blockchain. And it was just like, I was like, please. And I just didn't want to be some crazy lunatic on Twitter, like responding to everybody's artwork. So I just had to back off for a little while. But to answer your question, there's a way to honor and celebrate people, whether they're dead, whether they were, a martyr, whatever, there's a way to honor them, and there's a way to sell Black pain. So I'm just saying the whole like selling Black pain and dead Black bodies, that's all. That's.
Osinachi, thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
Osinachi, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, first of all, our government in Nigeria is not military, although the president was a military head of state, sometime when we had a military government. It's supposed to be a democracy, but this is what we're seeing. Then to respond to Ra, I think I think that when it comes to art, of course, the whole argument can come in, whether I think it has to do with the intention of the artist, whether the artist is trying to sell Black pain on the market, like you put it, or the artist is trying to mark a point in time. Because when we're talking about the blockchain, the records are there, it's going to be there forever. And to mark a point in time, I feel it's important. And that is the intention of I Can't Breathe, which I made and sold. And more than 80%, 90% of the proceeds went to Black Lives Matter. And it was my own way of responding to what was happening and my own way of showing concern. For I have friends in the US. I've told them over and again that I was afraid of coming to the US as a Black person because I could get shot, And it was really a painful period for the world, those who care. And I felt that it was important to mark that period as it happened and put it on the blockchain. And then a larger percentage of the proceeds went to Black Lives Matter. So it wasn't, of course, there might be secondary sales of the work, which of course the proceeds can also go to initiatives or organizations that are working around Black welfare and human rights. So I think it's a matter of marking a point. I don't know the intention of other artists who made art around the death of George Floyd, but for me, it was about marking that moment in history and putting it on the blockchain as it happened.
I hear you. I feel you. Again, my background is systems thinking. So I look at the whole process and I see as an individual artist, you're 100% correct. And I'm definitely not challenging on that fact, but I'm saying when you back up, when you look at blockchain, as a whole, the idea of, again, Black body being sold to predominantly white audience, like I would want you, and again, I'm not, I would want you to just look at blockchain as a whole, as a system, and the people that are purchasing the work and look at it that way. Because your George Floyd piece, there's somebody else that's up on OpenSea who did the same image that you got, the one that's in the photo, and they just took it in Photoshop and just put an effect on it and they have it up for sale. And there's a whole bunch of other George Floyd pieces up, So I think, because of who we are and what we do and in the space, that sometimes we have to think outside of just what we want to do as an artist. I feel we don't necessarily have to. We can do whatever we want, right? But I think in a larger context, if we just take a second, like, what does this look like? And what's funny about that, like Osinachi was saying, is that I was going back and forth in Twitter battles with people that weren't even you, you know, and this was like, it was like two men of color, you know, have like, you know, have words about, you know, conceptually about a piece of art, but I'm battling people defending, you know, like, oh, Osinachi's this, and I had other people jumping in, and I was just like, hey, there are nuances to this conversation that you might not understand, so you should just actually back up on that, you know, to certain people. But I mean, I can dig it. As individually as artists, we have the right to do and create any way that we want. I just say to the panel and group here, let's, you know, it also just take a larger view of how we perceived an image of a Black body on the blockchain and all of that kind of thing. That's it.
Yeah, I just, one thing, and you know, I know that this, of course, this is between you two, so I'm doing what everyone else did on Twitter. But I think that one thing that's interesting, I think for me, that I also see a lot, it kind of brings up two things. One, I think that it also goes without saying, maybe does need to be said, that the blockchain, the DeFi space, even the NFT art space, whatever you're going into, it is a racist space in the sense that you have a lot of these radical white dudes that are on 4chan all day that make up the majority of the people who are in this space, right? So I think that, especially on the American side, right, and I think that there is like a strong alt-right, like white nationalist sense of people who vote for people like Donald Trump and who feel like they sort of like own the crypto art space. So I think that there is like a lot of that, you know, we also have to like sort of like navigate and sort of just like know is out there. But I would say on the other end, I do think it's interesting because I go through this a lot when I work with, especially with artists of the African diaspora and artists of the continent. I think like our view of like race in America is also like very unique in a sense. And I think that like we're also like as Black Americans, I think we also are very sort of like, I think, defensive and like, honestly, yeah, just like defensive in a way. And I think that sometimes we're also not allowed to explore some of like the pain that we go through as Black people in the same way that people who are not from America do. And I think that like, so I think that there's also a lot of like under context that I think are sort of like working here as well, that I think existed way before blockchain ever did. And I think that like now it's sort of an interesting time because like we can, you know, we just have an opportunity to like deal with these things in different ways and just sort of like look at them and like, so I think that is interesting, you know, like Osinachi, like I think even your point of feeling like I'm afraid to go to America, like it's interesting because like I do hear that from a lot of like my family who like lives in Haiti, and I'm looking at them like, bro, I'm afraid to go to Haiti because like what are you talking about, right? But I think that like, but there is this interesting thing about like this whole dynamic of the way that I think like whiteness sort of like weighs on African Americans probably like differently than it does maybe any other African diasporic like community globally.
I would just like to say maybe, you know, for the sake of the mixed like audience we have, maybe Black people are not defensive, but hyper vigilant, you know, that's just a slight word change and for good reason. You know, I think 2020, we've seen pretty much, I could say at least every month, if not every week or every other week, or even every day, there's an announcement of somebody Black who has died, you know, been shot and killed, like pretty much executed. And I have a project that I'm working on right now around Breonna Taylor. And it's pretty much in response to the fact that when, you know, original people, indigenous people from all over the world, who are deeply melanated and identify as Africans and of the diaspora, have, when they seek to grieve online, they almost have to get permission to grieve online because there's a group and a body of people around on the internet who want to decide if it's okay or not for us to grieve people. It's like, oh, well, you can't grieve Breonna Taylor because her boyfriend was a drug dealer and she was an accomplice to a drug dealer. It's like, what? You know, like, what? First of all, wait a minute. Did you know her? It just blows my mind. So you're telling me I'm not allowed to feel bad for this family, for her little sister, for her mom, for people who knew her, for her boyfriend who lost his fiance, you know, they got their door kicked in. I can't feel bad for that person on the internet because the mass media said they were drug dealers.
Drugs should be legal anyway, but that's a whole different story.
Totally. But you know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, we have Donald Trump who literally ran on the I grab him by the pussy, right, as his campaign. It's just like, wait a minute, this guy, it's just like, it's just so mind blowing to me. So I think there is a lot of policing of the Black body on the internet, like in the metaverse, right? So I can definitely see Ra's point of, look, we don't need to move this type of toxic consciousness into this new space on purpose or on accident, right? And the way we prevent that from happening is by having an open discussion. And I fully get Osinachi. Like, look, shit is crazy in America. Like, y'all are living through some like apocalyptic, World War Z type of times where people are just on the street getting murked in broad daylight, by their own government or by their own police, and, him being like, well, I don't know what I can do from Nigeria. I don't know what I can do from Lagos. I'm an artist, and the way that I express myself and communicate and, share what I think and feel is through my art. So I don't know how to express this pain and this confusion and this fear in any other way than to make art about it. And he has a hyper unique approach and process, with his art. So him, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Sonachi, I'm just restating what I felt like I heard and felt from you. Him saying like, look, me thinking like, okay, his unique process plus a super unique situation for the modern time. It's not unique for Black people to be murked or lynched by the police. In fact, for those who don't know, the police are just an extension of slave patrols from few hundred years ago. And they're actually doing what they were, formed to do from the very beginning, which was to capture Black bodies and to, detain them in jails, bring them back to the plantation or kill them. So, there's nothing really new happening here. It's been happening for hundreds of years in America and probably everywhere else, in the world, but that's a deeper, not necessarily tech conversation. So we can save that for maybe part 2 at Crypto Basel. But yeah, I can see you. I see Ra, but I also appreciate Osinachi, who has this hyper unique technique for creating his art, saying, I'm going to Memorex this time or cement this time with this unique process. A unique, something happened in our global society with my unique way of making art and the way I feel about it as an African man. Yeah, I see both sides. Now, so I wrote something down when you were talking about street art, Mark Savage. And I said, really quickly, does anyone want to respond to that before I segue? Stefan, Mark Savage, Raw. Okay, Osinachi. And is it Osinachi or Osinachi, or am I pronouncing it?
Osinachi.
Osinachi, gotcha. So, okay, great. What are some of the needs of the culture, and how do we use creative tech to solve them? What are our top 3 greatest needs? So, Mark Savage, I heard you say that, we really need to start understanding processes and business and really getting structured and aligned. Ra, I heard you say very early on, is that essentially we need new, and I guess in my way, I heard it as I'm a systems thinker. So what I think is that we need new ways of thinking about these systems, and we need new systems so that we can have new ways of thinking about ourselves and our environment, right? Ourselves as a culture. Oh, sorry, hold on. I think you're muted. You have to unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need new myths. We need new narratives moving forward. Because there in this country and the world, there's one black narrative: poor black man, poor black boy. You're this. You're violent. You're a crime. Oh, you're pain. Look how you were chained. Look how you were shackled. And that's the story. You can't even like so. We need to be like free in the sense of free ourselves, you know, and like in the art that we create in the blockchain, let's like, what does that look like? What does inspiration look like without being labeled as black, without the pain, without the death? What does that look like? And it's tricky because it's easy to fall back on the white problem and I'm this and that, and he got killed. And we know, but what does the future look like? And because as black people and kids, they don't have it. They don't have fine examples of that new myths and new stories moving forward. So I think that's one of the things we need.
So what is one new myth you can introduce into the blockchain that you'd love to see expounded upon?
Love, absolutely love. If I can share my screen right now, I'll show you exactly.
You can share your screen.
Okay, let's do this right now. So this piece right here, I just recently put that up on Super Rare. I actually wrote a screenplay. It's called Ganji, a Love Story. It's a love story between these new characters of myths. I started researching this back when I was in Philadelphia. I worked on a project called The President's House, where it was revealed that George Washington owned slaves. He had 9 slaves. In Philadelphia, kind of uncovered that and made a whole installation about that project. And while I was doing that and learned about this story, basic story, you know, when slaves were captured, men and women were separated. Children and women went on one ship, men on the other, and they never saw each other again. But what happened was, you know, back in the 1800s, there were these 2 slave ships that were captured and brought back to Philadelphia to a place called the Lazaretto, which served as Ellis Island before, which served almost like an Ellis Island before they moved to New York. And these families were actually reunited in Philadelphia. So I started thinking about, like, imagine a couple being reconnected, and the kind of love, you know, that would take, or love that's cosmic beyond anything physical. And so I reimagined their story. So I wrote this story. I spent a decade putting together this screenplay about this love story. And I think, again, like new icons and myths of love. And it was crazy is doing my research, we don't have 2 popular culture icons that represent love of people of color. Like in popular culture, it doesn't exist. Like a Romeo and Juliet of like, just like love, sincere love, they don't exist. And I've been researching this for a long time, you know, and it's insane. And so the idea that we don't have symbols of love in like our story and popular culture, like that has to change. So this is just an exact example that I'm talking about of the idea of new myths, you know, like future generations need to be able to look and see what love looks like. And, you know, again, science, technology, all of that. We just need new stories and new ways forward. And the old ways, like, let's cut them off. Not to saying that we're not dealing with it and not we're going to have our heads in the sand like ostrich, because you still have to fight and you still have to deal with what's going on in the world, because it's reality and that's absolutely 100%. But let's shoot for the stars. Let's like, what does it look like? What does true Black freedom of the mind and the intellect look like? And let's show the world what that looks like, and let's show them on the blockchain.
And you think we can show them on the blockchain by introducing these new visual narratives, right?
All of our artwork. There's amazing artists on this panel. Our artwork and what we do, and the numbers too, right? When you start looking at the money and those things involved in that, you know, you start selling that, and then you set the standard, right? New people coming in, and you say, okay, that's what it looks like, artwork from a Black artist, and you're going to inspire people. And at the same time, I feel you're going to get better numbers for your value, because you're not locked into this Black context of this cliche, you know, thing of like violent drugs, death. And it's like, we talk about it, but everybody's sick of hearing about it, you know? And it's a thing that, yes, we're still dealing with it, but let's go beyond. Let's climb over the wall and see what does tomorrow look like, and lead the world in that, you know, just lead the world in that new ways of thinking.
You said something you said something earlier, like it doesn't have to be, quote, Black. Are you speaking about this theory of being post-Black? And if so, what does identity look like in a post-Black digital world?
Honestly, I don't even believe in the word Black. Black is a white word, you know, which is ironic. You know, it was made up early in this country because in the United States, white didn't exist. You know, you had Italians, you had Germans, you had Russians, you had Chinese. And early when they decided that, you know, they had, and it was just too complex. They had to decide property and ownership, who owns what. So they took German, you know, Russian, if you're from Spain, you know, and all these other places. And they were like, you know what? We're just going to make the umbrella of white. And then white started to show up in documents within its country. So if you were white, you could be a property owner. And if you were white, you could have all of these rights. And if you were black, you didn't. And early, even if you were Chinese or Asian, you didn't have rights. Only whites were listed as whites. And so they made up the word black to define, which was the opposite of white. And so we're playing in and we're building an entire identity around this idea of that is a white word, you know, and it's like, that's a whole other panel. So I'm just saying freedom, literal freedom of the mind and what we create and the art that we create, and free ourselves from these labels that we're boxed in, you know, still, again, for the culture, you know, celebrate who you are and celebrate, you know, the history and the rich history of your color and our relationships, but just free ourselves beyond that. And let's just not sell the past and the pain, you know, that's all I'm saying.
I feel you. I think we can definitely celebrate the rich history of our culture without identifying as a color. Because it's funny to me, when I went to South Africa for the first time for World Cup in 2010, I was really just amazed by everything that's going on there. But I was mostly amazed how they would identify South African people as Black people. And I'm like, but they're South African. They're the original people of this land. If I go to China, and I've been in China for 100 years, am I Chinese? No, I'm still a African woman or whatever I am that's living in China. I think it's really weird that, you know, we allow people to move to other people's lands and then assume their culture and then strip them of their culture. So now that colonizers, you know, the Netherlands, England, Germany, whomever, they've moved into South Africa. Now, since they're there, the actual indigenous people of that land are now known as Blacks. They don't even have their cultural names. You know, they've been stripped of everything. They're just called Blacks. I think that is super crazy. I've always thought that was crazy. I don't agree with that. You know, I think that is really insulting of the people. And now they have to distinguish and separate. I'm a white African and you're a Black African. That I was shocked. I'm like, so you're really going around calling these people Black Africans? Like, doesn't that just be like they're African? Doesn't that just like, why would you call them a Black African? Oh, that's because you are saying you're white and you're different from them. Let them be Africans, because that's who they've been. It's what they are. It's who they're gonna be perpetually. And you be German or Dutch or whatever you are, and just be like I have to say I'm African American. You are a Dutch person living in Africa. That's it. You know, like, I think that we have to bring in, like, even within the tech, right? There's a lot of talk about AI and bias, you know. I think we have to bring in respect for people. I think that's what's largely missing from a lot of the conversations, and even a lot of the technology that's created. A lot of people have been talking about the social dilemma. None of these platforms were made with respect for the people who actually use them. Do you know what I mean? To the point now where we have to talk about data dividends because we've been, you know, ripped off from all this like very rich data that have been making people trillions and billions of dollars. Why not consider the person ahead of time, right? Not just tolerate them. Tolerance only leads to more violence in my mind. Like, really be considerate of that person and be respectful of that person. And I think a lot of what we deal with can be solved. Mark, Saab, you brought up that there are a lot of the kind of like Proud Boy energy within the blockchain, DeFi, and NFT space. What do you think are some solutions around, you know, recognizing that that energy is there, but still, like Ra's been saying, being really kind of like single-mindedly focused on bringing out the most positive aspects of a future story and future narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting in that way, right? I think like for all the negativity that comes with it, I look at, okay, so like one of the big things I feel like when I look at where crypto is like right now, I sort of use this metaphor a lot, especially when I'm thinking and going through things. Like, I sort of look at it like the music industry in the 90s, because there's just so much money in it and there's so much going around. And I think that, like, for me, then I start to look at people like, you know, Jay-Z and Dame Dash. I start to look at people like Master P. I start to look at people like Birdman, and people who actually sort of looked at those systems and were like, okay, I'm going to do this independent. I'm going to get as much as I can from these systems, and I'm going to empower and employ my own people. And I think that's sort of the answer to it, is like, well, what we have is culture. What we have is like we were saying, like, we have dope art, and now they need that, right? So now people are talking about community tokens. I think people should be very smart about who they partner with to do their community tokens, and make sure that like they're getting the ownership that they want to get from it, and not sort of like, I think, fall into where things have gone now, where, you know, people are signing like whatever 360 deals, and people aren't necessarily getting what they should be getting from these like corporations, right? And so I think now, like, the blockchain gives us the opportunity to fix that, and to actually say like, well, like I'm not only going to retain ownership of everything that I have, now I'm going to enter into smart contracts, so that, you know what I'm saying, like, you literally, like, you can't screw me, right? And I think like that's sort of how we get over on that, is actually sort of like fundamentally just locking down what we could do. Like, you know, for instance, like, I'm so excited, like, you know, to see like Steven here and be like, yo, like, this is dope. Like, I have so many questions about building an economy, right? And like, that's been my hesitation, for instance, on like making like a felt community coin. It's like, I don't really understand how to do an economy. I know how to make like, you know, a business, sure, but how do I run a whole economy? Like, how do I make sure that if I'm giving out felt coin, that that's not monopoly money, that that's actually like something that someone can hold and that will grow? And so like, you know, even Mark, like what he's talking about doing, like, so like, I think that's inspiring, and having people who understand you fully and understand what you're doing, that you can then talk to and learn from and build with. I think that that's key, because like, we already know that like whoever you want to call they don't respect us. So if we're not going to get the proper respect that we should, then let's do it ourselves. And like, you know, let's whatever. Like, I don't care if they ever realize they missed out or not, because we could build great things together. And or even, you know, Barry Gordy back in Motown. Like, I look at this as like our moment to sort of do that for like visual artists. So I think that's sort of like my answer to that, is just being like, you know what, it's fine. Like, they could do all that over there, because what we can do, they can't even wrap their mind around that. Because like Rob was saying, they're filled with hatred. They have this whole weird outlook on everything that we're doing. So fine, like, keep that. I'm not even trying to enlighten you. I'm just gonna go over here and build something completely different.
Yeah, I like to say that, you know, sometimes it's a waste of time to convince people when people have their mind made up that they want to like try to game you, or like, you know, run game on you. It's energetically exhausting to always correct or defend yourself. So it's just like, look, you know, here's a clean glass of water. Here's a dirty glass of water. I'm drinking this one. You can taste both, but I'm not going to try to tell you which one you need to drink. That's your decision. It's interesting that you talk about the kind of like Proud Boys energy. I personally haven't sensed any of that, but through my Instagram, most definitely, right? People are really OD on Instagram with their comments and with their feedback, right? And especially what they think of what Black people should be making and doing creatively. I think that is like sort of like the biggest takeaway from me about, you know, interacting on the internet. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of non-Black people trying to tell Black people what they should be creating and how they should feel about what they create. You know, I had someone say, why do you always post, why do you only post work by Black people? And I was like, huh? If you look at this, a lot of this work is by white people. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. They would be like, well, it's Black faces. It's their picture. You don't have any white faces on your Instagram. And I'd be like, do you go to Instagrams with primarily white faces on there and ask them why they're only posting white faces and no Black faces? Like, I just like, people don't realize it's so wild to be Black on the internet. It really is. And, you know, there's that saying that Black kids run the internet, and it's really true. You know, a lot of the trends and we're going to see it. And the reason why I really wanted to have this panel is because I know it's just a matter of time before we turn it. You know, it's like, And for anybody that's watching, it's like this was that first kind of caucus, if you will, creative caucus that told you it was about to be turned, that told you what to look out for. And some of you slept, so you don't know. But for those who were peeping game, you really got on it. And you were like, oh, so Mark's trying to do a felt coin? Bet. And so Mark, the other Mark, he's already done something similar. And then we got Stefan, who actually like runs a little economy over in the Bahamas. So we could all go to Bahamas, chill with Stefan, learn how to get this game up, and then do this blockchain thing for real, and then put all of Ra's like movies and like love stories on there. Ra's about to be the Danielle Steele of like Bushwick.
We got a whole community in the Caribbean. You're always welcome.
And then we gotta head to Nigeria and head up Osinachi and figure out, how we could, Osinachi, do you know of a guy called Tope? He did AfriCoin. Or is it Afri? I'm gonna have to get the exact name, but Tope, do you know him? I know it's a long shot. It's like, you're from America. Do you know Sandy? You're from New York. Do you know Jay-Z and Beyonce?
There are so many top boys here in Lagos. So probably
I'm gonna introduce you to Tope. He's really dope. Cool. He has I feel like it's called AfriCoin, but it's basically an exchange in Lagos. And he's at Y Combinator right now doing big things. So shout out to you, Tope. You and Osinachi need to meet. So let's talk about tokenomics, because I feel like people in the NFT space, in the crypto art space, their tokenomics are going to be so messed up. And when everything kind of balances out and there's no longer this, wild trend of people throwing money everywhere, folks are going to find out that they didn't get the game early, right? And that because their tokenomics is out of whack, they actually don't hold the value that they were gassed up in the beginning to believe that they held, right? And then those who don't have as many tokens in the space, whose work, sold for, they're selling their work for 1 ether, when really that work is 15, 20, 30, 35 ether, and no one's giving them that game, so they can scoop up those works at 1 ether, hold that because they know the tokenomics is going to be right on that, and then cash in later, So Mark Savage, do you want to jump in, or Stefan, do you want to jump in and talk about tokenomics?
Definitely. Can you hear me?
Yeah, definitely. We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this kind of touched on your last question as to what we can do now. And I would say for everyone in the space or not in the space, the best thing you could do is watch one video and read one article a day about blockchain and cryptocurrency. The next thing is to get the foundation in economics. So when Bitcoin launched, it was proof of work. Satoshi Nakamoto, airdropping people, getting the miners on board. When Ethereum came out, it was like a DAO. Few people know, small group knew. They got in early. They're getting 300,000% returns. Uniswap and YFI, like these systems, small groups know about. So when it comes to tokenomics, they're a term they just came out as a fair launch. How can we make a fair launch where the community, the investors, the creators, the developers, everyone can have an equal footing, and that's really appealing to me with a fair launch. Just so you earn what you put in. Everyone can pour into PR, marketing, developing, creating, managing, advising. So it's not this one pool for advisors, one pool for employers, one pool for private investors, and they're just dumping on the market. When it comes to tokenomics, you really want to think about the use case and the inflation and deflation and the yield, APY. And then there could be some lending in APR, a rate you pay back. So you can be as innovative as you want. It can be as simple as, I have a coin and it's a currency. You can use this to do transactions, or you can take it up another level. You can stake my coin, you can hold it and get 1% or 10% interest just by staking my coin. Bitcoin is cool, but any culture can make their own coin. And if the whole entire culture agrees to use it and puts $100 each, now you got a coin that can have $1 billion locked into it. You can lock your total value into it from any community. And that's what Bitcoin has, one of the biggest communities, because it's on exchanges. There's countries, continents using Bitcoin, but they can easily use something else. Bitcoin has no marketing team. It's just the oldest coin. It's the first one. But there can be anything that comes along and does the same thing faster, has easier, and the people love it. So I always champion community. I put community, culture, and creation as my tagline. And I want people to support my coin. I'll support other coins. And as an artist, you need money. Well, I want to say you need money, but it's good to have a financial backing. You have your ideas, you have your finances, you can create, you can fund yourself, and then you can go out there and sell it. And you can say, if you buy my art in Ethereum, or if you buy your art in my coin, you can get this, that, and the third. I'm running a campaign right now where people that's buying my NFTs are getting airdropped other special NFTs. And I'm going to launch that into I have a few other things set up to where it can be, I'm going to do some snapshots. There was a Uniswap snapshot. There's a lot of snapshots. You can do a lot with this data. So the cool thing about blockchain is there's tons of data. You can do snapshots, you can track, you can go on Etherscan, see and look into everyone's wallet right now. It's public blockchain. You can see what they collect. You can see how their spending habits. There's so much data that's free right now. If you're thinking from a business or marketing standpoint, you can say, okay, I'm going to make this business card or this NFT flyer and airdrop it to these 100 wallets. And I know they're going to look at it. And I know they're going to come to my project. So I'm kind of a systems guy in blockchain. Once you know the systems and how to use the information, then you can build something that I would say take in steps. You can go for the full moon launch, but take it in steps. Get your alpha going, get your beta, get your feedback. And the best thing you could do is put out a survey, see what people love, see what they hate. People, I think Binance and Coinbase, there's like top companies doing hackathons, or they put out bounties, try to hack our system. It's just the open source of blockchain is where the power is. Use that open source technology in that open source community, skin color aside, get the developers, the creators, the community, get them in there. And with your tokenomics, empower each other. We're at a point in time where we can create our own money. We can create our own ecosystems, economies, and build each other up. So when my token comes out, I'll reward liquidity providers. Kind of how, I don't want to share all of it, but YFI, they had 3 pools. I don't know if you heard about YFI, but they had 3 pools. They rewarded liquidity providers, and it was 30,000 tokens. And that was it. So if you provide the community, provide the liquidity providers, provide the artists, or you reward them in ways where, okay, you put in that, this is what you get back. And then there's Uniswap. You can put liquidity right to your token. And it's instantly real money, if you want to call it. So there's a few ways to start. Definitely get your footing in the economics and the value of your tokens.
Word. Stefan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I do want to quickly hit your last point too, just for a second. But it's really, blockchain is about democratization. The democratization is definitely the most important thing. This is a space that literally anybody can come into once you have an internet connection. And this is why I care so deeply about education. It's at the end of the day, sure, the ratio can be a bit skewed, but that's why we just work harder to bring more people in. Because if we're going to people, if we're providing, say, courses or workshops, things like that, people will eventually understand. It may take a while, and it's definitely a multi-year, definitely a long-term effort. But it's so important to make sure, our people are represented, and not just that, but our people get exposure to what's going on around them, what the tech space is looking like, what all these new avenues for, buying, selling, trading, whatever are. I've been having conversations with a good friend of mine, but she's one of the curators for the National Art Gallery down here in the Bahamas. And I was just kind of showing her all this crypto art stuff, and she loves it. And now we're trying to figure out how soon we can do a local exhibition fully focused on crypto art with an Afrofuturist theme, which would be amazing. And definitely, yeah, sure. That'll most likely be early next year, but it's still early talk. But yeah, definitely keep you posted. Definitely bring you in. But even things like that is going to do so much for, you know, these small islands that people don't necessarily follow up or keep up with the tech space. So and there's so many artists down here who don't have this kind of global reach, even though they may have the tools to with the internet, but this is going to be the next level for them. Absolutely. And then with the tokenomics thing, I mean, Mark, those are excellent points, because a lot of reasons why so many tokens fail is that they don't think of the fact that, you know, if you create a blockchain or even if you just create an ERC20, you have to manage a whole economy. You have to manage the supply of your coin. You have to manage the distribution. Like if you start and you give and if maybe 3 to 5 people hold 40 to 50% of your tokens, nothing's gonna happen with it. Like that's like, you have to think of it as it were an entire country full of individuals, and the token holders are these, you know, your citizens really. So if the distribution's skewed or the supply doesn't make sense, or if you have like 100 billion tokens, there's no value in it, you know? So, and just to continue jumping off of that, like if that's something you're interested in, then definitely look into the tokenomics of these other larger successful coins, these protocols, and just figure out. I mean, not necessarily copy, but just try to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and look at the GitHubs. I mean, all the the code is open source. Just look at what's there, what people have done. Even if you like, so Bitcoin, for example, you can follow the Bitcoin mailing list, see what the updates are, see what people are talking about, see what people are looking into in terms of how to and the reason why Bitcoin is so successful, and I believe it will continue to be until the end of whatever, is that the people who work on it, they're not thinking of how do I make sure this works until 2021. They're just trying to think of how do I make sure this works until 3030, you know? So it's like there's a serious long-term goal into that. And you definitely have to think the same way when you're doing any of your projects. Like, how does this sustain itself into the future?
So beyond having the Crypto Art fair or Crypto Art exhibition, what else do you think that the blockchain can do for you? Are you personally interested in creating a coin? You mentioned earlier about your community of people that you're with, the Caribbean Alliance. Are you guys interested in maybe creating a coin for the chain of islands or just for the Bahamas?
We're not really looking into that. So we're kind of more facilitating the community aspect for some of these other companies, for example. And interestingly enough, what we're seeing is that, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the Bahamas just came out with they just launched their central bank digital currency. They have their own CBDC now, which is basically, it's a completely digital version of the dollar. It's not a crypto per se, but it's just a digital dollar backed by blockchain. And we're the first one in the region, but a lot of the other countries will definitely do that pretty quickly as well. That's the hope, at least. And then with that being done, it's going to be so much easier. So for a little bit of context, we have a lot of trade and payment issues there. So for example, if I'm in the Bahamas and I wanted to send a bank wire to Jamaica, my wire would have to go up to New York and then down to Jamaica for it just to get to there, which adds so much more time, so much more cost, so much more complexity. But with these like CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, it makes that whole process that much easier, especially if you have all these countries with their own digital coin, digital dollar, really. It enhances trade and payments to such an extent. So you never know what's going to happen in the future, but we're not specifically looking at doing our own coin, but you never know.
Right on. So Osinachi, Thank you, Stefan. Osinachi, it's AfriX. It's similar to something that Stefan just brought up. It's to solve a lot of the payment transfer issues and just payment issues that happen in Lagos overall. So if you know Tope Alabi from AfriX, if you happen to see him trying to do a talk somewhere in Lagos, definitely hit him up and tell him Phoenix said hi.
All right.
How can blockchain help Nigeria, Osinachi? How can creative technologies in general, but specifically blockchain, help Nigeria and some of the issues that you notice?
Okay, yeah. I'm going to start with what happened recently, which is the End SARS movement. So when the protest started, there was this initiative, the Feminist Coalition, that came together. A group of women came together and decided to support the protest by taking donations and, putting in the protest, providing medical care, providing sometimes entertainment for people, water, refreshments, and all that. And it was really working well because they were getting money through their bank accounts, Feminist Coalition, and also they had a Bitcoin wallet where they were taking donations, but it wasn't big at the start of the protest until the government had to somehow get the bank to block their account because the government had the power to do that. And when their bank account was blocked, they moved to Bitcoin. And it was through Bitcoin that they were able to receive donations from people across the world and were able to help, in a large way, sustain and support the protest until it ended. And I think that this is one example where the blockchain is will be really helpful, in terms of governments coming up and sort of cutting out the centralized platform, and then individuals can move to decentralized platforms such as the blockchain and do their transactions. Yeah, there may be concerns about corruption and all that, but then to a large extent, this whole thing is going to help move the economics of the country, the ecosystem, and all that. And I feel that as a crypto artist, that the blockchain is really important in creativity. I've been telling my friends who are into various fields, such as literature, to look at how blockchain is playing a part in those areas and key in. For me, as a visual artist, it's already happening. I'm seeing how it is happening. And I don't think that without blockchain, I don't think that my gallery in Switzerland, Kate Bass Gallery, would have discovered me and taken on my work. Because as a digital artist, up until recently when we have crypto art, digital art was seen as something way, way below traditional art. I mean, I used to have people who would come into my DM on Instagram and say, hey, I love your work. I'd like to buy it. And then when I mentioned that it is digital art, they sort of draw back. And I feel that it helps with the visibility and also sort of gives artists the opportunity to earn. While earning to support themselves, they can pursue their art in the traditional market while also doing so in the crypto art market. Where the traditional art market isn't moving so well for them, they could get money off of crypto art. Where they haven't been recognized very well in the traditional art market, crypto art can help bring attention to them. And I see that has been happening, for most artists in crypto art. So generally, it's the same scenario across the world that would play out in Nigeria in terms of the benefits of the blockchain.
I love to hear that. And what do you think, like, for the future of, do you think that in the future there could be like a super rare of Nigeria?
Yeah, of course. there can be a super rare of Africa, in fact. There can be a super rare of African artists. There can be a super rare of Black artists, you know. And
do you think
I
that's
feel
necessary
that,
to have a Black super rare, just in general, that represents Black art and artists of like the original people from all over the globe? Do you feel like that is something that's necessary?
well, if at the moment Christie's and other auction houses are talking about contemporary African art, this and that, you know, I think that categorization is important because an artist makes his art or her art from their experience, and it has to do with where they are from, their heritage, their cultural background. So if in the future there's a super rare of Black artists or African artists, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, you know. And I feel that there are artists from Africa and even other parts of the world who might not get a chance to get on board different platforms, you know. Platforms can decide, hey, we don't think your art is art enough, so we're not going to accept you. So they can have other options to go to.
Ra,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead. I was just
No.
gonna say really quickly to Ra, hold on, because this may be added to what you're saying, is that, Ra, do you think that pulls in the old narrative if we have a Black super rare, because of the points that Osinachi brought up, which are super true? And Mark, you can definitely talk to this because you have that museum background and things like that, in addition to what you were just gonna say. But just keep that in mind. Do you think that this is not post-Black enough if we have a Black version of these platforms, or platforms that serve the Black community? Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's a basic thing. We have economics folks here. It's just basic economics, right? Or just like, you know, supply and demand on that. If there's an interest for it, there will be a market for it. And if there's not, there won't. You know, I think one of the questions, you know, I'm thinking about collectors. Right now, we see some crazy prices, like the NFT spaces, like the numbers are just like skyrocketing now for what things are being sold. So I'll just probably ask everyone, you know, do you think that, you know, for your work personally as an artist, do you feel like your audience is there currently? You feel like they're, you know, yet to come? Do you think there's an interest in the images and things that you're creating in general? You know, I would love to know what everyone feels about that right now.
I mean, I could just say I'm a tester. You know, I'm kind of battlefield testing different things. And I will say my 3D renderings, my virtual stuff, people are loving. I've sold, so when I first started out, my first piece sold for 0.5 ethers. I just sold over the past weekend a piece for like 3 ethers, and I'm about to do my next piece for like 10 ethers. So I think you should test and see what people like, see what the buyers want to collect, and as an artist, create what you want. You know, I still paint. I haven't painted yet, but I do want to paint, and I'm going to do some jackets. I may make an NFT that goes with the jacket. You know, I can send it to you. But I say test it out, see what works, see what collectors like, and don't limit yourself.
Yeah, I was really just gonna say, sort of like big picture. I think it's just important to remember that like all of these NFT marketplaces are really just like UI UX exercises, right? And that's with all respect to them. And I don't mean to diminish them because they get buyers on their platform, etc. But it's all built off, you know, of Ether protocols, Ethereum protocols, like so anyone can do it, right? Like I think it goes back to what we were saying, like it is about the democracy of it. So, you know, it's not that difficult, right? And I think that it is important to note that, like we talked about, it's all open source, and if we want to create it, we can. And so I think that that's something that that as I've gotten to this space, you know, it's like you can't, in theory, just make an auction house that competes with Christie's, right? Like, or Sotheby's. There's just way too much that goes into that. And to keep it real, like they're not even going to give you the paperwork to legitimize that goes deep into like politics, right? Even when we talk about making a museum, right? Like there's so much that goes behind that. Like there's literally people who they will not let make that happen. So I think that like it's just good to note that, and when you start to look at it, like there's really great things out there. Like Zora is really great, Super Rare is really great, Foundation is really great, and I think that like but when you really get into it, they really are like their skins, right? Like their UI UX exercises, and that's dope and that's important. But I think that especially us here on this panel as visual artists, we know what that is, right? And we can do that too. So I just think that that's important to remember as we sort of maneuver through this space too.
And so do you think that's necessary? Kind of like you saw a necessity for the vaporwave dudes, the 3D dudes, you know, the motion dudes, and so you made Feltzine. Do you think it's necessary to have, you know, RBG?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? So,
you know?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think, you know, I think that it could be. I think also more so because like that idea of that you can go somewhere and sort of like know what you're getting, right? So like I think that there is sort of a thing that, so I think even to what we talked about earlier with like what Rob brought up, like what if there is a space where like we can talk to each other a little bit like easier, right? Where we could be like, yo, you know, like I know most of the buyers here are Black, so I feel more comfortable talking about something that, you know, having that like kitchen table conversation versus that like, you know, panel discussion, right? So I think that like there is some, I always believe that that especially, you know, given your experiences, that that could be appropriate, you know. And I think that like for all the bad rap they've gotten, I think lately, like the idea of a safe space could be useful if it's used in the right way. So
that's awesome. I love that you say that, because I've been thinking a lot about safe spaces on the internet. When the world itself is no longer safe, and we are the internet generation, and the internet is essentially our home. Like I was saying to my mom the other day, like I'm so grateful that, you know, I'm on the older side of millennials, but I'm so grateful that I have the internet. Like I sometimes just like, I don't know what I would do. Like, what would I be doing if there were no internet? Like, I've made, like the Yes Universe community was made on the internet at a time where, you know, I was taking care of my grandmother who had Alzheimer's. And, you know, I was so depressed that I, you know, turned to the internet and like just creative making with Photoshop and different things for that outlet. And I met Mark Saab on the internet. When I was looking for, I love digital art, and when I was looking for a community of unique art, not just like that high, you know, nose in the air, new media, you know, art, that glorified, rarefied new media air that only a few breathe, right? I wanted a variety of art. I found Feltzine. Feltzine was the very first thing that I found on Instagram that fit for me, where I was like, wow, this is so effing cool. This is weird, but that is amazing. Okay, that's also really weird, but it's cool, you know? He had a variety. It was curated with some flair. And I remember being like, I don't know who these people are, but I need to know them. I need to get in touch with them right now. And so, and I didn't know you guys were Black, like at all. It didn't matter to me, but to be honest, you know, in terms of that kitchen table conversation, when I found out you were Black, I was like, oh, thank God, you know, like there's some Black weirdos out there, you know, and they get me. He will get me on some level, you know. It felt great, because I think that what, you know, folks don't realize outside the culture is there's a lot of code switching that goes on for survival. Like we have to code switch out of survival, you know, out of survival, we have to know what's up from a variety of levels, and people think we don't know, but the mere fact that we've survived after everything we've been through historically, and just in 2020 alone, trust, okay? There is a strategy in place to survive, and not only survive, but thrive, and be able to do so under any weather, under any condition, under any circumstance. And, you know, I think that because we do have the internet at our disposal, it's up to us, like Rob was saying, to think about legacy, to think about what we're going to leave, you know, and to really be thinking way ahead, you know, thousands of years into the future. You know, at the very least, try to think 100 years in the future. I had a buddy of mine who challenged me a couple years ago, and he said, Phoenix, can you write your 50-year plan? And it's like, you know, I hit him with a beatbox. Yeah, I could do that, you know? And I sat down to write, and I was like, I'm at year 5, and you know, like, this is, okay, now I'm at year 10, and now I'm taking big chunks of information. It's not specific bullet points anymore. I'm just like, be happy. You know?
Sometimes even 5 years is difficult, super difficult alone.
You know, with bullet points, to really do that with bullet points. So I admire that we're all on this call from all over the world, from all, you know, different perspectives and angles, really trying to figure out how we bring this energy into the future in a way where those who look back are like proud, like, yeah, there were elders who held us down. There were elders who were really thinking about how we sell our wares and sell our creativity on the blockchain without being sold, right, as commodities on the blockchain. Because right now, Black culture, I call indigenous culture or original culture, is completely commodified. Everybody makes money off of Black people except Black people. And that's the realest thing. That is really real. And, you know, the thing is, it's like, fine, you know, I often think, okay, fine, they can keep that old model of doing things, right? Because that's all built off of colonial theories and toxic thinking anyway. How do we now take where we are with what we've got and you know, make it a 6-course gourmet meal, right, to feed everybody moving forward? It's like, you know, sometimes, so when me growing up, I come from a Creole family. My family originated from Nice on my mom's side originally. My dad's family is from here. And so it's like, my grandmother, I felt like we had one bag of cornmeal and some okra in the yard and some like greens. And she would like whip up this meal. And we basically never went to the grocery store growing up. We ate from our home where we had a garden. And I'd be like, how'd you make all this food? And she'd be like, baby, keep living, baby, keep living. And when you have that mind, right, of innovation, ingenuity, also the heart of gratitude, right, for what you've got, you can just make and mix up anything, it seems. And I think that we're, you know, all chefs in the kitchen right now. We all have something supremely unique to bring, you know, to this operation, right, called life. Mark, I definitely want to see a felt coin. I definitely want to see a felt coin from you. You know, you have personally been a huge inspiration for the digital community. Like I said, felt was one of those things, you know, one of those oases that I found online in my first, like, when I had said, okay, you know, I'm depressed as a motherfucker over here, taking care of my grandmother who has Alzheimer's, God bless her heart, but I felt like I haven't slept in 3 months, you know, I'm going absolutely crazy. And I need to like branch out, right? And where I live, like it's all elders. They're all like my, you know, aunties and uncles that I grew up with. They're like pretty much my grandma's age, and, you know, they're not like my homies. And so, you know, I didn't necessarily have that network. And so my network and my reaching out was online. And I feel like even, you know, for places that are continuing to be in you know, unrest, like what Osinachi is going through now, you know, online is where we'll find each other. Online is how we have to really connect, and online is like where we find our groups and our people. And so I just want to say, like, keep going, Mark, on what you're doing, because it's like, it's big. Mark also, you know, just so we can put this down in the histories, Mark gave me my first show at the MOAD. So in 2018, I really would not be where I am, I think. I mean, I would still get there, you know, but I would say Mark was definitely that 92 in the tank instead of the 86 or whatever the numbers are. Mark was that 92. He was like, nah, baby, you getting that like Supremo, you know? And I kept going and kept going, kept bugging Mark after I found Feltzine online. And finally, all things aligned, as Tori Nix would say. And, you know, a show came through, and that was the first AR show for the museum. I think it was probably the first AR show period that had all Black artists, and that's like mind blowing. 2018 for AR and Black people. So, you know, just so folks know out there, like, take advantage of everything you've got, you know, at your disposal right now. Like, really, I think this is a time to tap in and actually meet people, actually like do some Voltron with the brains and come together, you know, and really value everyone. Everybody has value. Everybody has value. And also like a time to like come out of your feelings about whatever, you know, just come out of your feelings about whatever, put it to the side and see where you can add value first and foremost, right? Before you extract value from a relationship. I'm gonna jump in the comments and see what's going on. If you guys on this call, someone suggested doing a group exhibition, I'm down. Speaking of group exhibitions, Mark actually has an exhibition coming up with Super Rare November 4th. It's gonna be dope. Mark, do you wanna just talk about that really quickly?
Yeah, just really quick. Exhibition with Super Rare. It's called Principia Discordia, which is essentially like it's like a faux religion text, but what it's really about is embracing chaos, right? And so it's sort of like a fake religion that was formed around just praying to the gods of chaos. And so my idea was that 2020 has been super chaotic. I think the NFT space is super chaotic right now in a good way, good and negative, you know what I mean? So it was about really embracing that and jumping into that. Yeah, and so, you know, we're going to be launching all the information about the show can be found on our Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. It's Feltzine everywhere, FELTZINE. This is exciting for us. This is like a huge evolution for us. The way that I've been describing it to everybody is all of our other projects have been mixtapes, and this is our first official album. So please like support us with that. And we're excited. You know, we're on this road. Thank you for having me on this panel. I've been extremely humbled. I've learned so much just in this like last hour and a half. I feel like I'm leaving this with like new powers. Like I feel like I just came out like the workout chamber. I feel stronger. So yeah, thanks y'all.
Anybody else want to shout out like what they're doing, what they've got going on, any kind of like final thoughts or theories before I recap about what I heard we all spoke about? Anyone else want to give a recap?
I'll just, you know, what I want to leave everyone with is, you know, like you said, you know, look in that mirror and know you are enough. You're amazing. You're greatness, and you have that, you know, infinite wisdom within you. For the community, I'm curating a door. You know, I got our platform. We're gearing up to launch, so check us out. We're on Twitter, doing airdrops, giving away NFTs, and more importantly, just kind of creating a safe space, that fun and positive space. See what everyone loves to collect, and what everyone's working on. And you know, I know I have information. I'm willing to share it. Hit me up. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on YouTube. Bit Savage, and thanks again for having me. I am honored. I'm grateful. I truly appreciate this. And I think there needs to be more talks, more information, more communication, and just more support. This is a beautiful time to support one another and be there, because people can have their own mental battles, you know. So when we can bring love first instead of fear, bring that love, and just support one another, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right.
Awesome. Osinachi, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, my social currency launched a few days ago, Osina. It's been a hell of a ride. I mean, I came onto the space wanting to just do my art, and then Bradley from Roll reached out and talked to me about having a social currency for my community and around my community. And I think it's a great idea, and I'm pushing. So go out there, get some Osina. I'll be putting out an announcement about liquidity mining for Osina very soon. So I'm hoping that with these steps that I'm taking in the community, that African artists, probably African creatives who will come into the space in the future, can look back at what has been done and, of course, find a path for themselves to do the right thing.
Awesome. Stefan or Ra?
I'll just say,
yeah, go for it, Stefan.
I'm just realizing right now, I think about artists the same way I think about software developers. Like, I'm not a developer, but I'm deeply passionate about like creating more developers, bringing them in, and kind of building those communities. And I would definitely love to do the same with artists. So I'm just happy to be in this space, in this community, and grateful for y'all for having me, because I think I'm the only non-artist here. But
Well, you
just,
got the important part. You got the economics. So there's no art really. I mean, because if you think about it, I say this a lot, but like this is the first time in modern history that artists will actually be paid for their work and, you know, kind of fair value. And the most important part, there'll be royalties, right? They can eat not just now, but 3,000 years into the future, right?
Exactly.
So
That was actually the aha moment for me with crypto art, because I'd been kind of watching it from the sidelines for a while. But when I started looking at the platforms and realized, yo, they get royalties off of every secondary sale. That was when I saw, it was like, I need to explore this more. I need to get into this. And that was huge, absolutely huge.
Because if you think about it, right, keeping it in context of kind of like why we did this panel, we haven't ever gotten royalties for our stuff. And we, you know, for America at least, I know other places, but we built this like with our hands, right? With our heart, with our strengths. You know, we built it on the days where we were blind and back was broke, right? So, you know, imagine if like other people who have reaped the benefits, reaped the royalties of our hard works, right? For hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Imagine if I got to reap the rewards from my great grandparents from building something, right? I would be in a different position, not only like financially and like physically, but maybe even mentally too, right? With the challenges that we have to overcome mentally because of hundreds of years of oppression and current oppression, right? And so I think that for you know, the culture, the blockchain, in terms of actually being able to literally reap what we sow finally will be enormous. And then to finally be able to leave that for our children and grandchildren, or in the case of Osinachi, the Osina coin, right? Maybe that's the future coin of Nigeria moving forward. Maybe that's what they're using, right? And like how incredible would that be, right? That their great grandfather created this coin, but also now this system of making art, or this process of making art with technology, right? With Microsoft, that nobody ever thought of, right? So now he has a whole new software out that's based on something that Microsoft created, but is no longer solely sort of like privately owned by Microsoft. It's not proprietary system anymore. He's able to create his own software. And you know what, Osinachi? You need to do that. You need to create your own software the way Otoy has their own softwares, right? The way Adobe has their own softwares. You need the Osina software line that actually helps artists, not like, you know, necessarily get your secret sauce, but helps them then create their own stuff based on your software. That would be rad. Rod, did you want to?
Yes. One love to everybody on the panel. This was a great discussion, and I feel like, you know, the meat of this conversation, you know, everybody brought like new ideas, education, collaboration, and love, and that's the future. We know about the past, let's learn from it, but let's build to the future again with new ideas, education, and collaboration and love. And we're good. We know how we do. We know how we move through this world since the beginning of time. And so being able to do that, like we already know. We already know. So there's nothing else to say. So, I mean, one love. And Osinachi, you know, I love your work, man. I can't believe you made that in Word, like a whole new level of respect, creating art in Word. So yeah, all of y'all, love all of y'all, man. This was great. I appreciate it. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that we should probably talk offline about how to do an exhibition in the metaverse, you know, specifically maybe crypto voxels, because it's the easiest one to get started on. I've been learning a lot about the metaverse from Coldy, so shout out to him for being, you know, a super awesome dude and a super awesome friend to me in that respect. He built out a Beeple show in the metaverse. So I think that that's linked on the CryptoArtWeek.com website, so you guys can go check that out. And then, yeah, let's get a group show together from this panel. I think that would be super, super fresh. And I think it would be very inspirational for other people. Like I was talking to my homeboy, Underdog, DJ Underdog, shout out to him. And he was just like, yo, so what do I have to do to get started? He was like, I basically got to like learn physics and then learn to tap dance and then learn how to like, you know, a day trader. I'm like, nah, dog, you don't. It's a lot easier than that. So I think we can even, you know, get something together and reach out to the culture and just be like, let's have a crypto night. Let's all just jump on Zoom as many as we can handle on here and, you know, teach each other creatively what the deal is and help to get our tokenomics up and help to strengthen one another, right? For us, by us, reach out, you know, everyone get one and bring one in. What else? So that's it. Like, you guys did a great job of doing a synopsis, so I don't have to do it. Support Mark's show, support Ra's art, support Osinachi's art, support his coin, and buy his software he's coming out with in the future. And then Mark Savage has a coin. It's called, or a platform called Adore, right, Mark?
Yeah. So Adore, you can join the Telegram. Check us out on Twitter. We're going to do a fair launch for our token pretty soon, and yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. And check out what Stefan is doing in the Bahamas with his group, the Caribbean Alliance. I'm Lady Phoenix, your host. Thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on this panel. And we will see you at 3 o'clock for the next panel, The Future of Crypto Art. Bye, everyone.
Bye.